to another episode of Bridging the Gap. Now, we're in the middle of graduation season and some students may be wondering what's next. Here to answer that question is Jake Richings, careers expert. Jake, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really well. Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me.
No, I know you're a busy man, so I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's around the time of year where students are graduating, an exciting time for them, but also a time where they may be thinking, what next? What do I do? What do I do with my life? We've all been there, haven't we, right?
Yeah, no, that's the thing. And I'm seeing that with a lot of young people now from all walks of life, not just uni graduates as well. So yeah, I spend a lot of time. I get to speak with thousands of students every year about, what next, what's actually exciting you in your career, and what you really want to do rather than, what necessarily your qualifications lead you to or what your parents want you to do. And certainly different to what everyone's telling you about following your passion. What can you actually do next? What's the next step? What's the right thing for you to do? But yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit further as well.
Jake, you're all over the internet, so LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. For people that haven't seen you, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what you do now and tell us, I suppose, how you got to being in the position that you're in now.
Yeah, so my name's Jake Richings. I run Authentic Engagement, creating in-person and digital content to engage young people in careers. That's everything from workshops to content creation to short videos, everywhere from schools to business seminars. And yeah, you're right. I suppose over the last couple of years, I've been quite digitally visible on especially LinkedIn and TikTok, where I spend a lot of time. But my work is, really inspired by, I suppose, where I came from when I left school, in that position of I have no idea what I want to do. It doesn't feel like there's any resource out there to help. You can only take an online personality quiz so many times before it tells you, what your dream job is supposed to be. Um, so after being, unemployed when I left school for about a year or so, because there was no jobs that sounded interesting to me, sort of get your foot in the door of, working as bar staff and then sort of progressing.
Mm.
I got to a point where I was running a customer service team in the electronics industry, but it wasn't what was interesting for me at all. It wasn't engaging. And I started to struggle a lot with mental health as a result. And this was, early 20s. And I couldn't find anything that felt interesting to me. People would tell me, oh, just, do what you're passionate about, do what you enjoy. But there wasn't really anything like that, aside from,
Mm.
being a professional footballer, which was sort of a bit late for me at that stage. Um, and looking around, I couldn't find anything that was helpful. So part of me just thought like, oh, well, there's so much stuff that I'm kind of interested in. How could I test that? So whilst having this full-time job, I was, managing an esports team, volunteering in a football team, making an app, making a board game, volunteering at a school, just doing all this stuff that I was kind of interested in and thought, oh, maybe I'd like a career as a teacher, but I'm not ready to go on a 4-year course. Maybe I'd like to be in game design, but I'm not ready to, change my whole career. And just doing all this stuff to kind of figure out what was right for me. I started learning so much about what was motivating me, what was actually interesting, what I was good at. And then, Jason, I just started sharing that with my friends, and they told me it was really useful. That then became talks to youth clubs and schools. And I'll never forget when I first got asked, how much do you charge? Someone wanted to book me and they asked, how much do I charge? And I suppose that's when it kind of became the business that, now, yeah, I get to do pretty much every day. So yeah, it's gone from being originally workshops about, how an individual can find the career that they love, which is one I still run now. But yeah, it sort of led into now what's engaging Gen Z, because I get to speak with so many young people. I've really got one ear to the ground of, what are they actually feeling, what are they actually saying. And yeah, my work sort of spans a lot of different industries, all focused on how are we helping young people get careers that they love.
Your story really resonated with me because I go back to when I was 19, 20, and I had a plethora of jobs that I didn't enjoy. And I look back on it now and think I wasted a couple of years. But from chatting to you, I kind of know that I didn't really waste them because I found out what I didn't want to do. I worked initially in a mail order fishing tackle company, which I hated so much. I remember being on the bus before I learned to drive, going to work one morning, and I was choking back the tears. I hated it that much. But the real sad thing was I thought that that was what work was. I didn't know it was possible to enjoy it. I saw, my dad and go off to work and didn't really enjoy it, but went because she got bills to pay. And that was the mindset that I kind of had back then. And I went on to selling windows for a while. I absolutely hated that. And then kind of fell into hospitality and found that a lot more rewarding, engaging. I got to kind of help people, which I found that I enjoyed. Um, yeah, I suppose what I'm saying is your story really, I just kind of listened to you chatting with a wry smile on my face because that was exactly me. Now, these graduates this year, the people that are graduating this year, I suppose I didn't go to university, but they may have a better idea of kind of what they want to do with their life because they steer themselves towards a certain course, but actually not necessarily because they may be graduating now and leaving university and still be unsure exactly which direction that they want to go in, right?
Mm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this is one thing that I felt quite strongly when I was getting ready to leave school. So at 16, I was really, really clear that I was going to be a music producer. That was just the thing I was going to do. And as a result, I took, A levels all designed around, music, physics and maths, which you need with acoustics and things like that. And then I did work experience. I managed to somehow, waggle myself work experience in a recording studio. Um, and I remember after spending a couple of days there, I thought, I don't want to do that. That doesn't feel right for me. It's not what I enjoyed. It's not really what I thought it would be. Um, I remember that sort of like hit me quite hard because it was like, oh, I've taken all of my A levels designed to be a music producer. Um, universities require certainly the best universities required grades that I wasn't going to get.
Yeah,
And I didn't really enjoy it when I got the chance to test it. It was kind of like, oh, what now? Hmm. I think that was a large reason why leaving school unemployed because it was what now? What is the thing that I want to do? And I've seen a lot of university students have that as well. You've just studied something for like 3 years, maybe you've had a year in industry to try it out, and you're realizing that this isn't the thing that I actually really want to do. But now
yeah,
all of my qualifications are aligned to one thing. Um, and I suppose the one thing I found really useful on that is remaining curious and testing all the different things you're just kind of interested in. I think too often we feel like we have to be like 70, 80, 90% sure we want to do something before we start it. Um,
mm,
I'll give you a perfect example was when, I've played video games like all my life, especially like growing up. And I thought, oh, maybe I'd like a career in video games, but I don't know how I'd start that. That's sort of like
yeah,
40, 50% sure. Um, and certainly like not ready to go into a full learning course or kind of a degree. But when you're 40 or 50% sure of something, that's the sort of indicator that you should really give it a go.
yeah,
And as a result of like learning on YouTube and downloading free software, I made a game. I made a video game, really rudimentary but small one. Um, and that
wow,
helped me realize like, okay, maybe it's not a career in game design, but having that creative autonomy is really, really important to me. And that's something I get to utilize pretty much every day in my own work now.
yeah,
It's only something I realized because I tested a path I was kind of interested in. And you can do that with so many different industries. Those quick, cheap, and easy ways you can get started if you're interested in football or sports or design or writing. There's really cheap ways to start that, really quick ways to start. You don't have to be 90% certain that that's your path in order to do anything towards that.
mm. I certainly remember as a young man being paralyzed by fear of making the wrong choice. Conversely, now at a time when I've got a mortgage and responsibilities, I'm kind of not so paralyzed by fear, which is weird. But I suppose when you are 20 and 25, it is the time when you've got fewer responsibilities most of the time to try and test stuff and see what direction you go in. I remember the careers advice being really quite poor when I was at school, which was many years ago. And so kind of I didn't have anyone kind of engineering a entrepreneurial spirit within me. Young people, I guess these days you would encourage just as you say to try to test to see where it takes them basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm seeing that a lot as well, and a similar thing with my career's advice leaving school as well. I think
Yeah.
now that so much is digitally available, we're seeing more about different paths that we could take and that's sparking that thing in our head of maybe I
Yeah,
could start my own business or a side hustle, or maybe I could have this career that's not necessarily traditional. It
yeah,
opens young people's eyes to what might be their career.
yeah. Just watching some videos by you on YouTube a week or so ago, and like you talked a bit about soft skills, which really kind of piqued my interest a little bit because we obviously, as a recruiter, we do a lot around soft skills and helping people into hospitality, um, and it's quite crucial in our industry, as it is in most industries. How would you kind of recommend that young people go about acquiring these soft skills?
Okay, yeah. So for anyone that doesn't know, there are two types of skills. There are what we call hard skills or technical skills, and then soft skills, or sometimes human, or I think sometimes they call like blue skills as well.
Yeah.
Hard skills or technical skills are more often than not like some sort of qualification or something that is like a black or white you can do or you can't do. So I can speak French. That's a technical skill. I can use Microsoft Excel. I've got a B in GCSE maths. There's technical skill. It's a hard skill, really, really easy to measure. Soft skills, on the other hand, are a bit less tangible. You can't really see them as clearly. They're harder to measure. Things like communication, leadership. It's really
Mm.
difficult to say, I can do a leadership. What does that mean? So these skills, because they're really hard to measure, they're really difficult to know where you get them from and if you've got them.
Yeah.
One thing I've seen in a lot of young people is that they don't recognize they already have a lot of these skills.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because you're not taught them in school, or university doesn't necessarily focus on them. It's really difficult to know if you're a good communicator or not, or if you are a leader. But you can certainly look back on things you've done, and this is what I encourage a lot of young people to do when you're thinking about writing your CV or starting in the world of work. Recognize what soft skills you've already got. If you've
Mm.
played in a football team or a netball team, or any sort of extracurricular team, you can probably work well in a team, right? You've got a skill
Yeah.
of teamwork. If you've been a captain or if you've been a leader, hey, you've got leadership, and you're starting to build those leadership skills. And the stuff that you've developed, not necessarily in a workplace or even in an education sense, you can look forward and say, oh, actually, I've got that. If you've played a musical instrument for a couple of years, then you're showing dedication. You're showing that you can, focus on one task regularly every day. Same with
Yeah.
football as well. I remember going to football training every Thursday for like 4 years. You're sort of dedicated to something, and you can look back at all these hobbies you've got, whether it's playing in a band, writing a blog, volunteering. Those things will give you these soft skills that will be really unique to you, that will apply in a business sense in a completely different way that you would have never expected. So I remember I played loads of football growing up, and like I said, I was captain for a while as well. That leadership skill, I wouldn't have been able to say I had at 19 or anything like that. But as a result, when I got my first proper job, I progressed quite quickly because I found it very comfortable to work with people around me and help them get better at what they do. Again, a big part of what I'm doing now. But that was a skill I was developing when I was 12.
Yeah. And you
I
didn't
think
know it at the time.
exactly, yeah. And whether it's creativity or problem solving, you can look at things that you're doing not only in your spare time but also from lessons. I had a conversation with someone the other day, actually, a professional in their 30s or something, who was saying the reason that I get to use empathy now, and I really enjoy empathy in my role, is because when I was doing drama at school, I had to put myself in other people's shoes and just think like, what's life like for them right now? Building that empathy
Fantastic.
skill. And the same happens with problem solving in maths or English and communication. You are
Yeah.
learning these soft skills throughout your life, but unless you sort of look back and recognize them, you might not see, oh, I did this. I was writing this blog, and that's helped me better communicate with people. And everyone's
Yeah.
got their own experiences with those.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think in an industry, soft skills are so important. I mean, a lot of our clients take on graduates. I mean, they're simply looking for some kind of enthusiasm, will to learn, some kind of ability to get on with your colleagues and maybe present yourself in a way that is conducive to kind of what they want. They were looking for a cultural fit within their company. So I think it's so true what you say, that we have all these skills, but we just take them for granted as almost like we do them as a habit, and because it runs the program in our brain automatically, we're not aware that we're actually doing it. But actually, we're all mini geniuses, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've all got that, one or two things that we've done for so long that it's just like becomes normal to us. Like, for example, for me, like conversations like this are quite normal for me, virtual conversations. For a lot of people,
Yeah,
this is like really scary. And just to recognize
yeah.
like, oh, I've got this thing. Like that's a skill that I've got. Yeah, and I can leverage that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. What top tips would you give, Jake, to anyone graduating that, like you and I, maybe doesn't know exactly what they want to do and it maybe is feeling a little bit freaked out? Have you got any kind of concrete steps you could take, or advice that you would like to give them?
Yeah, there's one thing that I often speak about. So I spend a lot of time speaking with students at schools, sixth formers, uni students about how do you find a career that you love. And there's one thing that always gets like a really positive reaction in terms of encouraging people to do something. So I've mentioned it a bit earlier, but it's called the quickest, cheapest, easiest step to test the thing you kind of want to do. Um,
Yeah,
so the first thing I'll say, one side is quickest, cheapest, easiest means there's no excuses, right? How often do we say like, oh, I'd like to learn guitar or whatever. Oh, it's kind of expensive, or I don't have time for that because I've got to do all this stuff. Because we're talking about quick, cheap, and easy, it gets rid of all those excuses. So you have to do it, and you have to do it
yeah,
like this week. But the other thing is test the things you're kind of interested in. Again, not expecting people to be 70, 80% sure what they want to do or what they might want to try, whether that's an industry, whether that's a job or a hobby. So as a result, it's encouraging people to test the things you're kind of interested in, whatever that might be. It doesn't have to be professional. But if you are interested in a certain job role, what might a quick, cheap, and easy test me? It might be work experience, even if you're in your 20s, you can still do that. Shadowing someone, it might be a conversation with somebody that does that job to find out what it's like. If you're interested in a new hobby, it might just be giving that a go. It might be watching online tutorials about how you can do this stuff. There's so many places you start in order to find what your next step might be and learn those skills. I mentioned a few times in this call that I played a lot of football growing up. The only reason I started playing football was because I went along with my mate who played football, right? And that
yeah,
was one of those like, oh, I don't know if I'll be interested in it. I don't know if that's right for me. And then that became a really big part of my life where I learned quite a lot of skills. You're not expected to know like the exact thing you want to do, and
mhm,
also you're not expected to know the skills you might get from that. But if you're kind of interested in something, you have to give it a
yeah,
go. You really do. And I've got a rule now. You can't see it in the back of my shop, but I've got a little book where every time I have an idea, I write it down and like, what could I do? And as a result, I've learned to play tennis. I've done improv comedy. I mentioned to you, I've designed a board game and a video game, managed an esports team. All this stuff
yeah,
that on its own is just like, phew, that's quite a lot of stuff. And it's given me so many opportunities and skills. All of that stuff I've done, basically for free or very cheap. I've done it in a quick sense as well. And it's not been that difficult to start. I don't need a
mm,
degree or expertise in that sense. And it's given me such a broad knowledge that I've really found the path for me now, just drawing on experiences that I liked or didn't like. Um, and the thing is, when you go through education, you're not necessarily exposed to all of those experiences. I know a lot of graduate programs try to get people to do more roles. Guess why? Because it opens you up to loads of different opportunities. You then
yeah,
find what you
absolutely.
like and what you're good at. Um, but you can't just wait for an employer to do that for you. You can give that a go yourself in your spare time, in your free time, in a quick and cheap and easy way.
So you would encourage people to go back to the root of maybe make a list of what kind of things they enjoy, for what reasons they enjoy it, and then kind of work up from there, thinking about what jobs encompass those skills and loves. Is that the key to it, Jake?
Yeah, and this is one of the other things that I speak a lot about. The workshop or one of the workshops I run. I try give you the essence of it because, like I say, it's a longer thing. But the things that we really liked or loved when we were growing up, especially the things that were different to everyone else, that's a great place to start, because everyone loves fun, obviously, but everyone has a different version of fun, and the things that I really like might be different from the things that you really like, and that's fine.
Now
That's
we both
completely
like
normal.
football.
Yeah, exactly. Um, it, but what you need to find out is the reason why you like those things. So I'll give you a really good example, Jason. I quite like maths growing up, and I'm aware that not a lot of people like maths. But the reason I really, really liked maths, and I can look back now and see this, the reason I liked maths was because I got to work on my own. Right, that's the thing that I just really liked.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily the problem solving, even though that was kind of interesting. I didn't really like the teacher that much, but I like maths because I got to work on my own. Now I'm in a job, despite having lots of jobs that I didn't like where I worked in a team, I'm in a job now that I really like, and I get to work on my own a lot of the time. And I don't see that as a coincidence. And I can look at other subjects like business, for example, that I really liked because of the teacher, because they were really good at helping me think differently. Now in my career, I seek out mentors and working with people that help me think differently. And so
Yeah.
we can look back at whether it's subjects we really enjoyed or hobbies we had when we were 12 that we don't have anymore, and try to work out, why did I like that? Why do I like the things I like now? And we can use that to sort of predict what we might like in the future. It's for the same reasons that, I don't really follow football anymore, for, a lot of various reasons. But the skills that I was using when I was 12 and when I was 15 around leadership and coaching, I use them now and I really enjoy that. So chances are going forward, I'm going to like using that leadership and coaching skill, whether it's
Yeah.
football, whether it's careers, or whether it's something else. If we can find out the, I suppose, essence or the trend of what we've really liked, whether it's at uni, at school, spare time, we can use that to sort of predict where we might like to go in the future.
It's been a really inspiring chat, Jake. I feel like I'm going to go off and relearn GCSE Spanish just right now.
Yeah, get on Duolingo. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. It's like, if you've had that little thing in the back of your mind of, oh, I might try learning Spanish, you've got to think to yourself, what's the quickest, cheapest, easiest way I could get on that again?
Yeah.
Whether that is Duolingo, whether that's digging out your old Spanish textbook or chatting to a friend that speaks Spanish, someone
Yeah.
that's going to push you to do that.
No, absolutely. It's sage advice without a doubt. Jake, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to drop me a message. Yeah, and let me know what
Yeah.
you found interesting about this call.
Fantastic. Great. Jake, I know you're busy. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real inspiring chat, and I'm sure the students watching it and business leaders will get a lot out of it. So massive, massive thanks.
Cheers, Jason. It's a pleasure.
And that's all we've got time for this week. Like and share because it helps the channel, and we'll see you next week.